Yo, what's happening, Raider Nation? It's your boy Soto here. Raiders versus the world. You know what it is. Talking about the team that the world loves to hate, your Las Vegas Raiders. All right, today we're going to talk about the new GM, John Spytek, and the five most important things he needs to do right now. We all know Spytek came from Tampa Bay. He has extensive experience. Um, tr- um, he has he has extensive experience scouting college football, scouting pro players, contracts, trades, you name it. This guy has done it all. And the Raiders just hired Pete Carroll, who has some, personnel experience himself. I think it's going to be a very good marriage with these two guys. These are things that needs to happen right away. Maybe not do it, but have the plan set. All right, we're going to get right into it, okay? Number one, John Spytek, GM, and Pete Carroll, head coach, they need to assemble the best coaching staff they can. I think Pete Carroll was a home run hire. Pete Carroll brings a lot of juice. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Pete Carroll is the absolute ceiling of what AP strived to become. Both defensive backgrounds, they both connect well with players. They both are great motivators and bring a lot of juice. But talent evaluation, in-game preparation, game planning, choosing a staff, time and game management. Pete Carroll has that through the roof. AP doesn't have all that. Pete Carroll was the guy. He's the guy that we needed, and he's the guy that we got. Okay, we need to assemble the best staff possible, not just OC and DC, but also some secondary guys as well. But let's take a look at the OCs, okay? Some possible candidates that we have out there. Floating around with his time with Tampa Bay and his experience working with John Spytek, the new GM, is Byron Leftwich. Byron Leftwich, curiously, has been out of coaching for a year or 2 years, excuse me, and I don't know why. I think he did a pretty good job. He called the plays during the Tampa's Super Bowl run. He's out there. He was kind of in the finals for a couple of head coaching jobs. Didn't go to college or anything like that as far as coaching for OC. He's out there. He has experience. Tom Brady has familiarity with him. John Spytek has familiarity with him. That's a name to consider. Also, Clint Kubiak. Before Kevin O'Connell got to Minnesota, he was the offensive coordinator there. He's a run-heavy guy. That's what Pete Carroll likes. Who knows? That's a possibility as well. Frank Reich, yeah, he kind of flamed out with the Colts. I honestly think that he got a raw deal with the Colts, but who's to say, right? Who am I? I don't own the team. Irsay seems like a very, stable person when he's coked out. I don't know. But Frank Reich is out there. He was a successful offensive coordinator in the past. Don't look at these guys and their head coaching pedigree and head coaching background because we're not hiring them to be head coaches. Frank Reich was a really, really good offensive coordinator, and we would be lucky to have him. Last thing I wanted to look at is Bobby Slowick. Now, after last season, Slowick was, in the conversation for a lot of head coaching jobs because of the job that he did with a rookie C.J. Stroud during the 23 season. People say that he fell off this last season. The difference in points scored per game was 0.3 points scored per game from 2023 to 2024. That's literally 3 points, like a field goal is the difference in the amount of points were scored. And he didn't have his number one wide receiver. He didn't have his number two wide receiver. They were both out for extended periods of time. There's a lot of reasons for the way things happen. But Bobby Slowick is a good a good offensive coordinator. And he's a young guy. He's a guy that we can grow with. My one kind of misgiving here, my one kind of cause for pause with Bobby Slowick is he is young. He hasn't received a chance to be a head coach. He might get poached pretty quickly. All right. A couple of names that aren't going to be the offensive coordinator, but could be maybe a quarterback coach, a passing game coordinator. Yeah, they're both named Carroll as well. Brendan Carroll, he's the offensive coordinator for the University of Washington this last season, but he was on the coaching staff of Seattle for a lot of years. He's well respected. This isn't like 100% nepotism hire if it were to happen. This guy is in a top college program as an offensive coordinator, so he's not a slouch. Okay, can come in, he can work with the quarterbacks, get some more experience, someone that Pete knows he can trust. I think it wouldn't be a bad hire as a quarterback coach. Also, like a passing game coordinator, assistant offensive coach. There's Nate Carroll. Nate Carroll is the current passing game coordinator for the Panthers. He's another son of Pete Carroll, but again, it's not like he doesn't have the chops, okay? And if you want to surround yourself with people who you can trust, not a bad way to go. And some other names out there could be like a Brian Johnson, who was the former offensive coordinator for, I believe it was the Eagles. Good offensive mind, young guy. Maybe cut his teeth a little bit, become an offensive assistant or something like that, be able to help us out. Some of the under the radar names, okay? There's some under the radar names out there, okay, for offensive coaches, not just coordinators, but like quarterback coach, stuff like that, right? There's Thad Lewis, okay? He's the current quarterback coach for the Tampa Bay Bucks. Probably going to have to get some turnover in that offensive coaching with the Bucks, seeing as Liam Cohen has moved on to the Jags. Wouldn't be a bad hire for us to get a young, experienced guy who is connect with the players, and he's a smart guy, dude. He's a good guy. He'll be a good guy to have on the coaching staff. Another one is Nick Caley. Now, Nick Caley is a tight end coach for the Rams, so that's a plus because these offensive coaches under McVay just seem to be getting better and better. Okay, so yeah, he's a tight end coach. Blah blah blah. Big deal. Big deal. Yeah, he's also the passing game coordinator. So the guy knows his stuff. Okay, tight end coach, passing game coordinator with the Rams, could be, a quarterback coach, something like that with us. Who knows? Okay, so this is a name to put under your hat. Another couple names who are ex-Raiders who, could be pretty good. There's Josh McCown. He's quarterback coach with Minnesota. He was a coach when he was a player. Okay, he was very well respected. He played a lot of years in the league, and he's imparting that knowledge right now to Sam Darnold and JJ McCarthy. Wouldn't be a bad way to go. Okay, guy plays the position, knows what he's talking about, and he's a good dude. His last name is, I love this last name. He didn't play quarterback for us. He was a receiver for us, but he was a quarterback in college. Ronald Curry. Ronald Curry is the current quarterback coach for the Buffalo Bills. Can't get hired right now because he's still playing, but I think it would be a good get to be on the offensive staff somehow. I believe that he's looking for a path for growth. Not sure how much of a growth path he has in Buffalo. Who knows? Getting a different scenery, being able to work with some different players, I think it may be good for Ronald Curry. All right, let's go to the defensive side, okay? Defensive coordinator is huge because even though Pete Carroll is a defensive coach, he lets his DCs kind of do their thing, okay? So some of the names who have been DCs in the past, there's Wink Martindale. He's the DC with the Michigan Wolverines. Had a kind of a down season, but he's an excellent coach. He was a DC for Baltimore Ravens for a lot of years. There's Nick Sorensen. Okay, Nick Sorensen. He's a name to look at. He was a DC with the Niners most recently. For whatever reason, they let him go, and now they have Robert Saleh out there in San Francisco. But Nick Sorensen is a good defensive head coach. I think he would be a good DC for us. And don't sleep on Patrick Graham coming back. Now, I understand that maybe Patrick Graham felt that he was slighted and overlooked by not getting the Raiders job last season and was given to AP. He was done dirty by the Jags, okay? Scheduled to come in and have a second in-person interview with the Jaguars while they were just kind of sneaking in, Liam Cohen in the back. That was a whole funky situation. But Patrick Graham, he passed up on like the Bengals. He passed up on a couple other jobs too to become the DC there because he wanted to stay in the running for the head coaching job with the Jags. That was pulled out from under him. Now where's he going to go? Out of the jobs that are available, I truly believe that the Raiders job is the best one for him because he built that defense. If Spytek and Carroll want to go a completely different direction, because, there's Malcolm Kuntz is a free agent, Diablo Spillane free agent, you have Polamalu, Epps, Merrick free agents. You can lose a lot of players on this defense. It could be a completely different defense than the one that Patrick Graham had built. That's my only reservation with Patrick Graham if there's a high turnover on the defensive personnel. If not, it would be a good move for Patrick Graham to come back and coach a defense that he has familiarity with. It's on the uptick, and he helped build. Okay, Outside of the coaching staff, what the GM John Spytek needs to do for the Raiders is he needs to scout his own players and compare those players to who's out there in the rest of the league. That's one thing that a lot of fans really fall short on. They say things like, well, this guy is the best blank that we've had in 10 years. This guy is the best quarterback that we've had since this guy. You're doing it all wrong. You're not playing those past teams. You're playing the players that are playing now. So what you want to do is you want to take a nice, strong, hard evaluation of the players that you have and compare them to the players in the league that are available or can be available to get via trade. That's a huge step forward, and that's how you make these big moves by letting, let's say, there's guys that are on the team now that you wouldn't think would be kind of cap casualties. There's a couple that you might look at like a Minshew or Andre James, but maybe a Jack Jones. He was an AP guy. He came in. He's kind of streaky up and down. He's a ball hawk, but I mean, it's been kind of talked about where he could potentially be a cap casualty. You have all that, right? Compare them to who's out there currently. That's what you got to do, because when you do that, you're comparing to who's available to help your team right now. And any increment of success, any positive increment would be a positive influence on the team. After that, you need to identify and sign your own players, okay, in that first round of free agency, and possibly go big game hunting and get a name or two, like last year was Christian Wilkins. There's a lot of good players out there. There's a lot of good players that we have to resign, and we talked about it. Malcolm Kuntz, I think, is a guy you need to resign. Robert Spillane is a guy you need to resign. Nate Hobbs is a guy you need to resign. Trayvon Merrick is a guy you need to resign. If you can get him on a nice deal, Clavon Chason is a guy that you can sign too, because he really showed something towards the end of the season with Max out, with Wilkins out, with Kuntz out. He went in there and he was the guy on the defensive line. So if you can get some of these guys back in, maybe poach a couple of guys here and there in some maybe trouble spots like offensive line, running back, maybe a wide receiver here and there on the offensive end, that would be amazing. But that's the first round of free agency. It starts with identifying who on your team you need to get back. Big one. All right, next one. After the first round of free agency comes the draft. But well before the draft, you have to nail down your draft strategy for the positions that you don't get in that first round of free agency. It's a lot of moving parts, man. A lot of moving parts. Trust me, it's a very kind of intricate balance, right? Because you're balancing, okay, we want to take these guys in the draft, but then we just sign these guys. I hear a lot of guys, a lot of Raider fans out there, they're saying, hey, man, I love T-Mac. T-Mac at 6 would be amazing. He's a friggin' amazing fit. Yes, he's an amazing player. I love T-Mac. He's great. But what if you sign Amari Cooper? What if you sign T. Higgins in that first round of free agency? You're really going to take T-Mac at 6 when you just signed and gave big money to T. Higgins? I don't know, man. See, that's the thing, is it's a balancing act. So you have to have your different scenarios set, and you have to have your plan set for your draft. Quarterback, what are you going to do? Let's say, for example, we go after and get like a Russell Wilson or Sam Darnold or whoever. Let's just say it's Russell Wilson because of the Pete Carroll tie. Okay, let's just say. Are you really going to draft a guy at 6 if you got Russell Wilson you're not bringing in Russell Wilson to be a backup. You're bringing in Russell Wilson to be a bridge quarterback. I understand that's what Atlanta did. Atlanta was a big mistake, man. They gave all that money to Kirk Cousins. They were probably better off just starting Penix from the beginning, or hanging on to some one of the older quarterbacks that they had, like Ritter, and starting him the first couple of weeks, and then throwing Penix in there after that. I'm not saying we should do that, but we're also not going to give, let's say, a Russell Wilson the same type of deal, even close to what Kirk Cousins got. So it's a possibility, but there's also a couple of other things we can do. We can take a quarterback at 6, right? We can go BPA at 6 and then trade back into the first round later. We have a high second round pick and we have 2 third-round picks. We can package one of those 2s and then one of those 3s, and we can jump back into that first round. We can do it. It's only jumping like 7, 8 spots, okay? Probably going to happen if we wanted it to happen for a high 2 and a high 3, because the 3 we got from the Jets are like right behind us, okay? That's a possibility as well. Or we can go BPA at 6 and sit around and wait for something to fall to us in the second or in the third round and develop underneath a Russell Wilson. The quarterback class this year, there's two top guys, right? There's the Cam Ward, the Shedeur Sanders up there, but then there's a big just group of other quarterbacks. There's the Milrose and the Darts and the Ewers and the Howards and Gabriels. There's a bunch of guys that are just kind of packed in there, and those guys are just, what's your flavor? What do you like better, right? Now, honestly, the quarterback that has the best elite, the only elite trait out of all those quarterbacks is Jalen Milroe's ability to run. If Jalen Milroe goes into the NFL today, he's probably the top 1, 2, 3 running quarterback in the NFL right now. He would be, I would feel, the only candidate to go back into the first round and get late in the first round, a la Lamar Jackson. I'm not saying he's Lamar Jackson, but that's what happened with Baltimore. Okay, so the draft strategy, again, is the next thing to do. The last thing that we need to do is the second round of free agency. Get your game plan together and go for those studs and duds. You don't want to get a ton of middle-of-the-road free agents. That's not what you want. That's what like the Grudens did and the JMDs and all those guys. That's not the way to go in free agency. You don't want to get a bunch of middle-of-the-road guys that you're paying a decent amount of money to and hope that they do a lot better than they've shown they can do. Because if they flame out, you're paying a ton of money to these guys. What you want to do is you want to go studs and duds. You want to get those 1, 2 high-priced, big-name guys and then fill in with a bunch of one-year guys to compete with your younger players and your rookies. Because they can surprise you, like a Clavion Chason, like a Snowden, like these guys, these young players who are out there that you can get in on the cheap and go out there and throw them out there and see what they can do. But you want to have those blue chip guys that you can go out there and get as well. So let's take a look at that. The second round of free agency, which is the free agency after the draft, where you already have your first round of free agency and you also have your drafted players, you still have holes to fill. And there's still a lot of really good talent out there in that second round of free agency. Let's take a look here. At quarterback, arguably, we had the worst quarterback room in the NFL last year in totality. Okay. Who's out there? There's a Sam Darnold's out there. There's a free agent. There's a Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and even a Mac Jones who's shown some promise in the past. If you draft a quarterback high and you want to have a guy who's been around in the league for a little while, who shows some promise, who maybe turn into something, hell, we're going to be at 18 games soon. You might as well get a couple of guys out there, right? All right, next is running back position. For running back, again, we had probably one of the worst, if not the worst, running back room in the NFL. Who's out there in free agency? Well, there's Aaron Jones, there's Jalen Warren, who's a young guy who I think can make it happen. Najee Harris, who's more of a grader or grinder, right? There's also Nick Chubb, 1 year removed from a serious knee injury. Nick Chubb is a stud. We'll see what he can do if he can come back, right? But these guys would all be a good veteran presence in the running back room. I still do believe we need to address this position in the draft. At wide receiver, we already talked about it a little bit. There's some freaking bangers out there. There's T. Higgins. There's Chris Godwin's out there coming back from injury. There's Amari Cooper. Stephon Diggs coming back from injury. You might be telling yourself, look, all 4 of these guys, well, maybe not Chris Godwin, but 3 of the 4 have shown to have some kind of like head case issues, right? Either malcontents or complainers, this and that. That's not an issue with Pete Carroll. That's another one of the things that we need to kind of address with the Pete Carroll hire. This guy can work with anybody and calm anybody down and make them a productive member of the team. So I'm not worried about either one of these wide receiver divas, because if you're a good wide receiver, you're pretty much a bit of a diva. On the offensive tackle side, I mean, DJ Glaze did a good job, man, but you can always get better. Maybe even kick Glaze inside at guard if you sign one of these big name tackles. But the tackles are out there right now. There's Ronnie Stanley out there, Cam Robinson, who did a decent job with the Texans coming in with the Vikings to replace Christian Darrisaw after he got hurt. There's guys like Dan Moore and Alaric Jackson. There's a couple of guys out there that can come in and be better than the guys that we have. If we can get them at a good deal, it's a lot better than like the Andrews Peets and the Cody Whitehairs that we got last year. At guard, there's quite a few of these guys. There's quite a few guards out there that I think would be upgrades over what we have currently. It's just some of them might cost a little bit of money. But that's okay because we've got a lot of cap space, right? And it's definitely offensive line, interior offensive line especially, is an area, a position of need that we need to address here. So there's Trey Smith, there's Zach Martin. Who knows how much Zach Martin has left, but he's still better than anyone we have right now. Mekhi Becton has shown that maybe he's not a tackle, he's a much better guard, and I think he would be a very good, massive guy. I think he'd be really good for us. There's Kevin Zeitler, there's Will Freeze, there's James Daniels, Brandon Scherf, and Tevin Jenkins. These are a lot of these guys are converted tackles to guards who found that maybe they didn't have quite the lateral movement and the twitchiness to play outside of tackle with the edges, but as guards, they're big, bruising, hulking bullies, and they would be great in the offensive line on the interior for us. Looking at the defensive side, Malcolm Kuntz, like we said, is a free agent. I would love to bring Malcolm Kuntz back, but if we can't, there's a couple of guys out there that I think would do a pretty good job. They're going to be a little pricey, but it's a premium position. There's Matt Judon out there. There's Josh Sweat, and there's Khalil Mack. Don't underestimate the influence of Pete Carroll on bringing back a Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack does not hate the Raiders. Khalil Mack is pissed off at John Gruden, okay? I think that having a Brady and a Spytek and a Carroll come in there, if they can talk to any one of these guys, I think they can smooth anything over and be able to help us give ourselves an excellent defensive front. Linebacker is going to be a little bit of an issue for us because we have both of our starters are free agents, man. Diablo and Spillane are both free agents. So we take a look at the guys, like there's some names. There's Dre Greenlaw's out there. Nick Bolton's going to be out there. Bobby Wagner after the season. He's still playing, but after the season, he's going to be a free agent. Levante David, who's got a really strong connection with Tampa. Now, these guys are a little bit older, but they're highly productive, and they can come in at a short deal to kind of settle the ship while we find the guys underneath, or some of the guys that we drafted last couple seasons, get those guys up to speed. Now, corner, everyone needs corners every single season. I don't care how many corners you have, you could always use more in this passing league. Hobbs is a free agent. Bennett was hurt. He's going to have to come back. Deacon Richardson showed a little bit of promise, but still got burnt a lot. And then you have Jack Jones, who is kind of a hot and cold hit or miss type of guy, but when he's locked in and on, he's great. I think Pete Carroll can still work wonders with Jack Jones, but how is he going to take AP not being there after he was the guy that really believed in him? Who knows? But there's a lot of good corners out there. There's DJ Reed, there's Travarius Ward, there's Asante Samuel Jr. is out there. He's going to be a free agent. Rasul Douglas, who we had for a little bit, then let him go for whatever reason. Brandon Stevens, there's Carlton Davis, who was with Tampa in the past. Byron Murphy there's a lot of good guys out there. There's a lot of guys that we can pay. They're not going to be too terribly expensive. They're going to be a little bit of our cap space, but we have it to use, and it's definitely a premium position. Now let's move on to safeties. Safeties, again, 3 of our safeties are free agents. In Epps, Polamalu is restricted, so we can match any offer, and it's also Merrick. Out of these 3, I think Merrick will get the most attention. But if, let's say, we had wanted to go in a different direction, there's Javon Holland, who I believe was in the same draft class. There's Hufanga from the Niners, who's coming back from injury and maybe gotten a little bit cheaper. There's Cameron Bynum, Justin Reed's out there, Andre Sisco's out there in free agency. There's Elijah Molden, Xavier Woods, a lot of guys. Jeremy Chin, Julian Blackman, Justin Simmons. There's a lot of safeties out there. It's definitely a position that Pete Carroll loves, and he wants specific things out of that position. If he doesn't see it in the guys that we already had that we can bring back, he's going to get a good one because he loves having that strong safety on the back end to be able to come up and hit, but also cover deep as well. All right, guys, that's my time today. Those are the 5 main things that GM John Spytek needs to do for right now moving forward to build this team to make it the best it can. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And share your socials. It's the absolute bare minimum you can do without doing absolutely anything. All right, guys. Till next time, everybody. Peace. Hey, Raider Nation. Thanks for watching. There's plenty more where that came from. Go ahead and smash that like button. Drop a comment. Make sure to subscribe and share to all your socials. It's the bare minimum you can do without doing absolutely nothing.